Chair now recognize Mr. Casar. We're going to recognize Mr. Casar, then Mr. Jordan, and then at the request of the witnesses, we're going to take a brief bathroom break. So Chair recognizes Mr. Casar for 5 minutes, and then after him, it'll be Jordan, and then a brief 10-minute break.
Chairman, I don't know why Republican members even show up to this committee or to Congress when it's clear who's really in charge of the federal government right now, and that's Elon Musk. And at the beginning of this hearing, when we asked our Republican colleagues if we could bring Mr. Musk to this committee, Republicans ran cover for him. They want him hiding in the White House tweeting, and they voted unanimously that they didn't want to hear from Elon Musk. Supposedly, this committee is supposed to be about rooting out waste, fraud, and abuse. And I agree. So let's talk about waste, fraud, and abuse. The biggest fraud in U.S. government right now is Elon Musk pretending to care about efficiency when what he cares about is taking your taxpayer dollars, taking your Medicare, taking your Medicaid, taking your Social Security, and enriching himself and his billionaire buddies with it. The biggest abuse in the U.S. government right now is Elon Musk getting $154 billion richer since the election just a few months ago, while consolidating unprecedented power over your money and your government. Mr. Musk invested $227 million in Trump's election and is making billions off of it. That's waste. That's fraud. That's abuse. And speaking of waste, another waste is my House Republican colleagues showing up because they waste their time. They won't speak out about any of these abuses against working people and taxpayers. This is the Oversight Committee, and there are 17 independent inspectors general. They are watchdogs. They are the oversight arm of the federal government. And Trump and Musk illegally fired 17 of them, including a watchdog that was investigating one of Musk's companies. And what I've heard from House Republicans is either silence or defending that kind of behavior. You guys know that it's embarrassing and it's wrong, and that's why you voted to not have Musk here before us. Elon Musk is not doing anything to make government more efficient for working people. He's using his position to more efficiently raid your taxpayer dollars to enrich himself and his friends. I'm told that this hearing is about right-sizing government. So I propose that we start right-sizing our federal government by firing the most dangerous man in it, and that's Elon Musk. To protect our taxpayers, we should fire Elon Musk. To keep American Social Security numbers private, fire Elon Musk. To protect Medicare and Medicaid, fire Elon Musk. To save schools and our jobs, fire Elon Musk. And to protect the idea that American people have a government for the people and by the people, and not for the ultra-rich and by the ultra-rich, we must fire Elon Musk. Attacking working families is nothing new for him. Mr. Musk's biggest factory sits in my district. And the first thing I did after I was elected to Congress was to call for an OSHA investigation into the injuries and deaths of workers building that very factory. Those are investigations to be launched by the Department of Labor, where later today we're hearing that Musk's minions are going to go and maybe start shutting down parts of that key agency that is built to oversee big corporations and defend the interests of workers. Musk's companies, like Tesla, have been sued and found liable for many labor violations. Screwing over working people is just part of the game for him. He has been found liable for improperly giving not safety training to construction workers and withholding wages. OSHA fined Tesla for exposing workers to hazardous chemicals without proper training and monitoring. OSHA opened up investigation into deaths of workers at the Tesla Gigafactory in 2024. SpaceX, another one of Musk's companies, was found responsible for the deaths of one of their workers, Lonnie LeBlanc, due to head trauma that he got on the job. So now Musk has seemingly unlimited power to take advantage not just of his own employees, not just of American consumers, but of all Americans. Unlimited power to Americans' data. Unlimited power to choke off funding meant for Americans and the programs that people count on. Enough is enough. But thankfully, our country isn't one of Musk's companies. Our country is ours. A billionaire whose career is built on the abuse and exploitation of workers should not have unlimited power in this country. He should be before this committee. And when he comes before this committee, if somebody wants to do the right thing, all you got to do is turn on your mic and say, fire Elon Musk. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back.
Thank you, Chairman. Today, we've heard from House Republicans on this committee support for Trump and Musk's plan to abolish the Department of Education, to slash critical programs that help students like Title I, Pell Grants, financial aid, and programs that help kids learn, all to pay for a tax break for Trump's billionaire buddies and for friends of Elon Musk. Today, we've heard on committee alarming support from House Republicans for a national voucher scam that would pull money out of our public schools and hand it out in private contracts just to enrich their billionaire donors and their friends. And if you can't believe it, just take a look at what's happened here over the last couple of months. Musk has been using the federal government to get himself even more rich. He spent $277 million to elect Donald Trump, and since the election, he's become $154 billion richer. How is making billionaires richer while taking money away from our kids, how is that good for education? How's that good for student outcomes? How's that good for our community? How's that good for our taxpayers? It's good for no one but Trump's ego and for Musk's pocketbook. In places like Texas, I've seen rural Republicans speak out against these voucher scams because they know that pulling money out of our teachers and out of our public schools to hand over to unaccountable voucher schools is not empowering parents. It's taking money away from parents and handing it to these companies. For years, unaccountable, unregulated private schools have stolen public money through state voucher programs. We know some of those voucher schools took public funds for kids that weren't even intended or even going to those schools, weren't attending that school, embezzling millions of dollars. Elon Musk has used this kind of thing to his advantage for years. Remember that he is a government contractor himself who is taking untold amounts of money from a federal government that he's saying he's trying to make more efficient for somebody, but he's really trying to make it more efficient for himself. So what happens to our students that we want to learn when they have Title I funds cut away from about 60% of our public schools because of this House Republican plan to give a billionaire tax break? Who fills that gap? Is that our teachers spending their extra money that they barely have so that they can support our students? Is that local taxpayers that then have to pay to fill the gap, essentially backfilling the billionaire tax break that the Republican majority wants to pass? Are public schools that serve not just poor kids, but working class and middle class kids gonna have to close? How does that improve learning for our students? So we must continue to fight, and I'm ready to fight on a bipartisan basis if we can see some bravery from some number of rural Republicans, just like I've seen in the last few years in places like Texas, who are willing to stand up to the grift, who are willing to stand up to the corruption, are willing to actually stand up for our students. We can improve our education system, and we can do it without stripping it for parts and selling it to the highest bidder. Trump, Musk, and their minions want to expand these voucher scams, not because they want to improve reading, not because they want to improve math, but because they want to improve their own wealth. They want to improve their own standing in the stock market. You know, this Doge supposed agency, to me, is not the Department of Government Efficiency. It is the Department of Billionaire Corruption. And so from politically motivated firings this last week to privatizing education, to eliminating whole departments against the Constitution, all so that private contractors can cash in, Trump and Musk are focused on one thing: enriching themselves, no matter what the cost to Americans. And I would hope to hear some House Republican spine against this spineless corruption. And unfortunately, what I've been hearing in committee today, Mr. Chairman, is people either being silent or going along with it, even though they know it's going to hurt our kids. Look at state after state after state where they've passed these voucher scams. Even Republicans that voted for it, you talk to them, Publicly and privately, they say this did not help. All it did was take money away from those schools that were asking for our help. Those people like us that are entrusted with these positions of power, we should be using it responsibly and not just be going along with the folks that already have more wealth than anybody's ever had in the history of this planet. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back. Go ahead.
Hey, Ryan with Fox News Radio. Elon Musk put out a statement yesterday saying that DOEs will make rapid safety upgrades to the air traffic control system. Do you have any thoughts on him getting involved in that space?
Elon Musk crashes and breaks everything he buys. He thinks he can buy our government. We cannot allow him to crash and break our air traffic control system. Look at what happened when he bought Twitter. It just started crashing. Again, not a big deal if your app doesn't open one day. It is a really big deal if Americans don't know whether or not their air safety is protected. So this is, again, another instance where Elon Musk thinks he knows better than everybody else in the world. In fact, he doesn't know anything about how to make sure air traffic control works. He doesn't know anything about how to make sure that our Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid payments get out to folks on time. He just knows that he wants to find a way to make money off of this at the expense of other people's safety. Anybody else on air traffic control? You want to say something?
Well, I'll just say this. One of the things that's going to come up soon is Congressman Jerry Connolly and other Democrats are going to call for the committees, Republicans, to subpoena Elon Musk and have him come to Congress and actually testify about what he's doing and why he's doing it. So we'd love to have an opportunity to test out what he knows about issues like that, what he's doing with the secret information that he's been getting, the conflict of interest issues. He's going, as Congressman Garcia testified or discussed a minute ago, he's going through materials where he's got open cases filed against him in OSHA and others. What's he doing with that information? Donald Trump said he would make sure that there are no conflicts of interest, but I don't think we can really trust the conflict of interest chief in charge to take care of that. We don't want the fox to be guarding the hen house. We need to have him come up here and explain what he's doing, but ultimately he needs to go, and we need to do this the right and legal way with respect to managing the government.
Thank you, Mr. Ivey. Good morning. Y'all able to hear me okay? All right. I'm Greg Casar. I'm proud to be chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, and today we're here to say with one voice, fire Elon Musk. An unelected, unaccountable billionaire now has seemingly unlimited powers over Americans' private data and over Americans' taxpayer dollars. It seems every hour brings more news about a new threat Elon Musk poses to working people, a new way that Elon Musk wants to take your hard-earned money and keep it for himself. Just yesterday, Musk threatened to go after Medicare and Medicaid. Just yesterday, we also learned that Head Start programs serving 20,000 young students are locked out of their federal funding by Elon Musk. To be clear, that means that you have a billionaire, the richest person on earth, willing to take away your health care, willing to take away kids' lunches and meals, willing to take away pre-K, just so that he can finance a tax break for himself and his billionaire buddies. And just last night, Elon Musk came out and we found out that he's interfering with air traffic control. When Musk took over Twitter, he repeatedly crashed that platform. It's not a big deal if your app doesn't load one day, but it is a huge deal if you don't know if your plane is going to crash or not. If we don't fight back, Elon Musk will take dollars away from our public schools, away from our health care, away from Social Security, away from our own safety systems, and use those dollars to line his own pockets. We are here fighting for a country that is by and for the people, not by and for the ultra-rich. That is the core of the fight. And while this is, of course, an event being held by the Congressional Progressive Caucus, whether you are progressive, whether you are conservative, whether you are liberal, independent, No matter your political party or your background, I think this is a fight where all Americans can agree that your elected representatives should be representing you. Your government shouldn't be run as a corrupt grift mill for a billionaire. This is a national emergency. In the aftermath of the election, many Democrats needed time to soul search, to grieve, to think, but that time has ended. And that time ended when Elon Musk took control of our country's financial nuclear codes. It's time for all of us to get off the mat and get back in the ring. We're going to fight smarter. We are going to fight harder. And CPC is going to lead that charge. Our members have been fighting outside of the Treasury Department, outside the Department of Labor, at USAID. We are in our communities, in the halls of Congress, fighting back. As I said in my first press conference as chair here, our members know how to fight the billionaires, the grifters, and the Republican frauds in Congress. That's what this moment calls for. And people have been asking us, what can you do? What will you do? Well, I'll tell you right now, we are going to use every legislative, judicial, and public pressure tool at our disposal as members of Congress until we fire Elon Musk. My entire time in Congress, I've never seen Republicans be able to pass a budget. They can never get that together. And they always come crawling to Democrats for help. Well, we are not going to help Republicans keep Elon Musk stealing our taxpayer dollars. We are not going to help those Republicans that want to keep Elon Musk in charge of the entire federal government. We are not going to help Republicans allow Elon Musk to break the law, shred our Constitution, while he makes billions of dollars in wealth for himself. Elon Musk spent $270 million to get Donald Trump elected president, and he's increased $160 billion of his own wealth since that election. We are not going to, I for one, and I think many of us here, are not going to just stand by and hand over our votes if that continues. We are going to fight to fire Elon Musk, or at minimum, anybody in this country, anybody in Congress should at least agree that he shouldn't be given unconstitutional powers to enrich himself with our taxpayer money. So remember that during Donald Trump's last term, Americans came together. They rose up in every single district in this country and saved the Affordable Care Act. Republicans had control of the government, but Democrats stood united. Democrats went and gave our message out into the community. The community responded and rose up, and millions of people's health care was saved. Similarly, the Congressional Progressive Caucus is going to lead alongside leaders in this country to fire Elon Musk, to save our health care, save our schools, save our taxpayer dollars, stop the corruption, and I think this is a fight that we can pick and that we can win. Thank you all so much for coming today. And when Donald Trump and Elon Musk look at Title I funding, they don't see opportunity for working class kids. They see an opportunity to enrich themselves. When Donald Trump and Elon Musk and House Republicans look at funding for public education, they see dollar signs for their private interest friends. And I don't want anybody here in the media reporting that they're trying to right-size government or shrink the size of the federal government. No, they want to redistribute the public funding to their billionaire buddies. That's what they're all about. Jeff Yass just made a $6 million donation to Governor Greg Abbott in Texas, the largest political donation in our history, specifically because he wants public education dollars from the federal government and from our state governments to quit going to public school teachers, to public school students, and to go to his friends that run private companies that capitalize on our public school dollars. That's what this is all about. It's all a grift. Look no further than the fact that after Elon Musk invested $250 million in getting Donald Trump elected, his wealth has grown by $160 billion since the election. They are taking your money. They're trying to take money out of your schools. They're trying to take money from your teachers. They think that your taxpayer dollars are all for them. And it is House Democrats the American public, and we're calling on there just to be a couple of Republicans to grow a tiny bit of a spine so that we stop having our taxpayer dollars, our kids' dollars, your dollars stolen by people that already have ungodly amounts of money and are determined to take yours. They think that your labor is to make them rich, and they think your taxpayer dollars are to make them rich. Every time they see a school get renovated, every time they see a teacher get hired, they're asking why those dollars aren't for themselves, and we're here to stop them. Thank you all very much.
The way. I prefer the former. Thank you, Madam Chair.
The gentleman yields. I now recognize the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Casar.
This subcommittee is supposedly about looking into waste, fraud, and abuse. So I'd like to start talking about independent inspector generals who are supposed to be looking into waste, fraud, and abuse. Mr. Talcove, do you know how many inspector generals at agencies that were investigating Elon Musk's companies have been fired by the Trump-Musk administration?
No.
It is 5. Ms. Royal, the Inspector General of the Department of Labor had 17 open investigations into Tesla and SpaceX. Do you know what the Trump-Musk administration did to that Inspector General?
No.
They fired him, and I think y'all know. Mr. Whitson, the Inspector General of the Department of Transportation was investigating Tesla. Do you know what the Trump-Musk administration did to that Inspector General?
No.
They were fired. The Department of Defense's Inspector General was looking into SpaceX. Mr. Hedler, do you know what the Trump-Musk administration did to that Inspector General?
I believe he was fired.
Thank you. I think everybody on the panel knows what the answer to these questions were. The U.S. Department of Agriculture Inspector General was investigating Musk's Neuralink. Mr. Talcove, now I'll ask you again under oath, do you know what Mr. Trump did to that Inspector General that was looking into one of Musk's companies?
No.
He was fired. The Inspector General at the EPA was repeatedly taking on Tesla. Mr. Hedler, since it seems that you're answering the questions that everyone knows the answer to, do you know what the Trump-Musk administration did to that Inspector General?
I believe he was also fired.
Also fired. At least 5 Inspector Generals that were looking into Elon Musk's companies were fired by the Trump-Musk administration. These Inspector Generals, who are independent, protected by law, they are the people that find the waste, fraud, and abuse and found many of the cases of waste, fraud, and abuse that have been brought up today, fired because they were looking into Elon Musk. At the NLRB, the National Labor Relations Board, which is supposed to protect workers from getting their unions busted by folks like Elon Musk, made functionally broken by the so-called Department of Government Efficiency that really is the Department of Government Efficiency for Elon Musk, not for you. They are trying to shut down the Department of Education, the Department of Labor. You know what Elon Musk doesn't seem to be looking into? His own contracts. Again, I'll ask you, Mr. Talcove, do you know how much money a day Mr. Musk will receive from the federal government for his contracts?
No.
The answer is $8 million a day. Just last year, Elon Musk was promised $3 billion from close to 100 contracts with the federal government. Ms. Royal, do you know how much the average person in this country who survives on Social Security, one of our seniors who's worked their entire life, about how much they have to survive on a day?
I do not.
$65 a day. We're not looking into Elon Musk's $8 million a day. This subcommittee, chaired by Marjorie Taylor Greene and the House Republicans, is looking into your grandmother's $65 a day. Let me be clear. I think we would all support taxpayer savings, look into money we might needlessly send to billionaires and big corporations, find taxpayer savings, and send it back to your hardworking family. But instead, what House Republicans and the Trump-Musk administration want to do is they want to look into your kids' lunch money, your kids' teacher's salary, into your grandparents' Social Security. They want to take that money and give it out in billionaire tax cuts. And they're talking about that in committee tomorrow, in budget committee tomorrow. They just released their plan. So let me be clear. When Republicans talk about government efficiency in this Congress, they're not looking into billionaires who don't pay their taxes. They're not looking into billionaires who get rich off of government contracts. They're not looking into Elon Musk firing watchdogs who are supposed to keep him accountable. They're looking at cutting your public schools. They're going straight for your Social Security. They're coming straight for cancer research. They're coming straight for the Department of Education. They're not looking at big tech. They're not looking at big pharma because those people fund their campaigns. If this committee were serious about rooting out waste from our federal government, then today's whole hearing would be about how Musk and Donald Trump are firing the independent watchdogs who've done this work for decades. Instead, my Republican colleagues' actual goal on this committee is to distract from Trump and from Musk's corrupt war on accountability. This will not be a subcommittee dedicated to making government efficient for everyday people. It's about helping Elon Musk and Donald Trump be as efficient as possible in robbing our government and handing out our government services to the rich. So this seems that this subcommittee is
The
just going to be
gentleman's
like
time
the
has
agency it's named
expired.
after,
The gentleman's
sham.
time has expired.
a total sham.
The American people are $36 trillion in debt. It certainly seems reasonable that someone has been fired. I now recognize the gentleman from Tennessee.
You're going to put us
Mr.
further in debt
Burchett.
with your billionaire
You're
tax
not
cuts.
recognized. Mr. Burchett, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair Lady. The gravy train for a lot of these folks, it's been on biscuit wheels and it's about to run off the dadgum tracks, and it's about time. Could you imagine standing up here?
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. Buenos dias. I'm Congressman Greg Casar. I proudly represent the heart of Texas. I'm chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus today, and I am so proud to stand alongside our movement partners in launching the Tax the Greedy Billionaires Coalition today. Thank you all so much for being here. I want to thank People's Action, Move On, Indivisible, the everyday Americans, working people, small business owners joining us today. And I want to thank all of the people who across the country have been sharing their stories about how the Republican billionaire budget will hurt everyday people. Today, we are here to say clearly, enough with the attacks on working people in order to fund billionaire tax cuts. I'll say it again. Enough with the attacks on working people in order to fund billionaire tax cuts. Enough to the cuts to programs that working people have earned through their hard work. Enough with the lying and the gaslighting. This is not about making government more efficient for working people. The Republican plan is about making government more efficient for big corporations and billionaires who are screwing us over. We don't need to cut Social Security. We can expand it. We don't need to cut people's health care. We can expand it. We can have a country that is better off for small business owners and for workers alike if we just tax the billionaires instead of funding the billionaires. Today, Republicans here in the House will try to pass this billionaire budget resolution. There's some, yeah, it's terrible. They're going to try to talk about their complicated math or legalese, but what's going on for the everyday person is really simple. And so I want the folks watching at home to know that what House Republicans are trying to pass today is to steal from seniors, steal from children, steal from veterans, all to pay for tax cuts for the ultra-rich. That's what it is. They want to end Medicaid as we know it just to pay for tax breaks for guys like Elon Musk. The bottom line is their plan is billionaires get richer, everybody else gets screwed. Now, they think they've got a lot going for them. They've got the money, they've got the big corporations, they have the White House and the Republicans in Congress. But I don't really like their odds because House Republicans and billionaires are picking a fight with working Americans. And in a democracy, the people win. 8 years ago, when extreme Republicans had the White House and both the House and the Senate, they had the money, they had their plan to take health care away from millions of Americans and end the Affordable Care Act, but the American people won and those House Republicans lost. And we're right back in the same situation because today something is happening in America. Americans are rising up to say we want a government by and for the people, not by and for the billionaires. You see it in protests and marches and at Republican town halls all across the country. I can promise you, even though when the press go and ask some of these Republicans whether they're worried about what they're seeing at their town halls, whether they're worried about those protests, they have to lie through their teeth when they say they're not worried because we hear them in the hallway worried. They're worried because they know that they have a choice. They can either be representatives of their districts or they can act like Trump Musk employees. They have that choice. And they know that if they keep acting as Trump Musk employees, that the people in their district are going to demand a representative. And that puts them in a tight spot. And while the Republicans say they have a majority, they're not telling the full truth there. It's a very thin majority. And if just 3 House Republicans choose to act as representatives of their districts rather than Trump Organization employees, then we can block this billionaire tax ripoff, protect working families, save our health care as we know it. Just 3 Republicans who will say, no, we're not going to kick people off of their health care to pay Elon Musk even more money. To get there, we're going to need to share stories like the ones you will hear today, and we will need coalitions like this one to educate and organize people across the country. In Washington, we Democratic leaders need to step up because courage inspires courage. And so I know that I and my colleagues here today are ready to go to the mat and fight all the way until we stop this budget and finally demand that instead of a tax break for greedy billionaires, that we actually tax those greedy billionaires and expand the programs that working people deserve. Thank you all so much for being here. And now I want to turn it over to our champion on the Senate side. He is the ranking member of the Senate Budget Committee. He is a progressive hero for us, and we're so proud to be joined by Senator Jeff Merkley.
That works for the president, that goes against what he says, he has a right to fire them. So thank you.
Absolutely. I now recognize the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Casar, for 5 minutes.
I'm going to do something that I've never done in a congressional hearing before, and that is plead for help from the American people, plead for help from my Republican colleagues on something that we actually all agree on, because lives are at stake right now. I'm going to start by describing the facts on the ground. Millions of people are at risk of dying of starvation in areas of the world where Democrats and Republicans have already agreed and committed to feeding them with American-grown food for humanitarian reasons and for global stability. But yesterday, I spoke with people in charge of warehouses in Sudan and Ethiopia, warehouses full of food, but because of Doge, that food is trapped in the warehouse out of reach of starving and dying moms and kids. In those 2 countries alone, 150,000 children and moms are at risk of dying this month if that food is not delivered from the warehouse to them right up the road. Everyone agrees that's not supposed to happen. Republicans voted for this food, and Democrats voted for this food to get out. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says the food should go out as part of his life-saving waiver. Doge Chairwoman Marjorie Taylor Greene started this hearing by saying that life-saving food programs should still be running. We have paid for the food, and we have shipped it, and it is sitting trapped in the warehouse because Doge is blocking the payments needed to get the food out to the people who need it. So here's what that means. It means that kids are dying, and more will die tomorrow, of severe acute malnutrition. If you want nightmares, just Google severe acute malnutrition and look at the photos. The way that healthcare workers determine if a kid is dying of this is they measure their bicep. And if their bicep is less than 4.5 inches around, then that means you could die of starvation tomorrow. Think of a kid's arm fitting through this hole. Think of your kid's arm fitting through this hole. These kids could die tomorrow. You've heard today about the waiver for life-saving humanitarian assistance, and all I'm asking is for Rubio's waiver to be made real. People watching at home, you can do something about this. I know many of these hearings are live on Fox News. I'm a Democrat. For many of the people watching, you may not agree with me on many issues, but I think we can all agree that this food needs to get out of the warehouse and to these kids. I've gotten phone calls from conservative friends, people of faith that moved to Africa to live out their faith of I was naked and you clothed me, I was hungry and you fed me, and they agree that this food should be given out. So call your Republican congressperson, call the White House, tell them you know they didn't mean to do this, but that this food needs to go out tomorrow. If you're in the press, cover this story. Ask questions about Ethiopia. Ask questions about Sudan. Tell the world about this. And to my Republican colleagues, Doge is not going to listen to me, but you can fix this. Pick up the phone, make a phone call. Y'all could save lives today. Send an email. Please, put politics aside, get the food out of the warehouse, save these kids' lives. You can save these kids' lives. With that, I yield back.
The gentleman yields without objection, and I'm entering for the record a post from the World Food Program that states we can confirm that the recent.
Thank you so much, Vice Chair Liu and Chairman Aguilar. I also want to thank New Dems Chairman Brad Schneider, who I'm proud to call a partner in the fight to protect Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, and the American people. Tonight, millions of Americans will tune in to watch the President address a joint session of Congress. I do not know what Trump will say, but I can guarantee you that he is going to lie to the American people and not tell them the truth about what MAGA Republicans in Congress want to do to you right now. So let me say it clearly. Whatever political games that Donald Trump plays tonight, whatever lies he tells and whatever show he puts on, people watching at home should know that Trump and House Republicans want to steal your health care, steal your taxpayer money, and hand it over to their billionaire buddies and to their donors. In Congress, Republicans are advancing a budget that would end Medicaid as we know it. And Elon Musk is trying to cut your Medicare and your Social Security. Social Security that seniors earned throughout their lifetime is what Elon Musk just recently called a quote-unquote Ponzi scheme. I'll say it again. Elon Musk just called Social Security, quote, the biggest Ponzi scheme of all time, end quote. That's right. A guy that makes $8 million per day from federal government contracts thinks that seniors getting $65 a day from Social Security is a quote-unquote Ponzi scheme. Their plan is plain and simple. Guys like Elon Musk get richer, and you get screwed. But here's the good news. Democrats are united and fighting back to protect your Social Security, your Medicare, and your Medicaid. New Democrats, Congressional Progressive Caucus Democrats, the two biggest ideological caucuses here in the Congress, have put out a joint letter that includes 100% of our members from our two coalitions saying we will not vote to cut your Medicare, your Medicaid, and your Social Security. Over 200 House Democrats showed just in a matter of days that we are united with the American people in this fight. So while we may not all agree on every single issue, we are saying with one voice, hands off Medicare, hands off Medicaid, and hands off of Americans' Social Security. So now the question becomes, will any three House Republicans grow a background? Will any three House Republicans do the right thing and act like U.S. representatives instead of like Trump employees and join us? Because if three congressional House Republicans join together with Democrats to do the right thing, there will be no Social Security cuts. We can prevent cuts to Medicaid and Medicare and to Social Security. But if House Republicans choose instead unanimously to come after Social Security and Medicaid and Medicare, then they will own the terrible consequences for working people. Thank you so much, and now I'd like to hand this over to my partner, the chairman of the New Democratic Coalition, Brad Schneider.
The gentleman, Mr. Casar from Texas, for 5 minutes.
Good morning. Mr. Gonzalez, You wrote the proposal to defund NPR, PBS, and public broadcasting for Project 2025. Can you answer a few questions for me? How many millions of dollars a month do taxpayers spend for Daniel Tiger to play golf?
I have no idea who
The answer is none.
Okay.
To your knowledge, has Miss Piggy ever been caught trying to funnel billions of dollars in government contracts to herself and to her companies?
That's a silly question.
Well, the answer is no. How about Arthur the Aardvark? Has he ever fired independent government watchdogs who are investigating his companies? The answer is no. Madam Chair, I'm told we're here to talk about government efficiency, but Daniel Tiger has not blown $10 million of taxpayer money to play golf with his friends, but Donald Trump has, just at the beginning of his administration. Miss Piggy hasn't been caught funneling billions of dollars in government contracts to herself, but Elon Musk has. And Arthur has not fired independent government watchdogs investigating him and his companies. But Elon Musk has fired at least 5. So once again, my Republican colleagues are dragging in a scapegoat, this time PBS and NPR, to try to distract from the fact that Trump and Musk are robbing working people. It's Sesame Street that's making things expensive. It's Mr. Rogers that's blowing taxpayer money. It's listeners like you. It's absurd. The total funding for public broadcasting is just 1/6 the amount that Elon Musk's companies make off of the government every single year. But you will not see Elon Musk being grilled by this committee. I've seen a lot, but pointing the finger at Elmo to cover for Elon Musk might be a new low for Miss Marjorie Taylor Greene's committee. I don't think Americans are buying it. Here's what I think we should be having a hearing about. After Trump and Musk took over the government, reporters noticed that the State Department was trying to funnel 400 million taxpayer dollars to Tesla. The State Department said it's an old contract, no news here. But because of a brave whistleblower and an NPR reporter, they exposed the corruption and the lies. Madam Chairwoman, if we want to look into waste, fraud, and abuse, why not look into that? Elon Musk, who's running cabinet meetings, who's running the White House, was trying to funnel money to himself. So let's stop investigating Cookie Monster and start investigating how the Trump administration lied about this and was trying to funnel money to their biggest political supporter. Maybe you're trying to defund NPR because they expose this kind of corruption. And if Republicans were serious about investigating waste, fraud, and abuse, my colleagues would admit that Big Bird is not the problem. Big tech is, big pharma is, big insurance companies are. Elon Musk's companies make billions, $3 billion a year off of government contracts. That's 6 times the money that goes to all of public broadcasting. Private insurers in Medicare Advantage overcharged taxpayers $83 billion just last year. That could pay for public broadcasting 160 times over. The $4.5 trillion tax cut for the ultra-wealthy that Republicans on this committee are trying to push through, that would pay for public broadcasting 9,000 times over. There is money to pay not just for PBS and NPR, but health care for every American, tuition-free trade school and community college for every American, to end homelessness on the streets of our cities. But my Republican colleagues don't want to talk about the corporate waste, fraud, and abuse because those corporations fund the Republicans' campaigns. So instead, they want to shut down educational programming for kids and their families, and they want to shut down local radio stations. To borrow a phrase from Sesame Street, the letter of the day is C, and it stands for corruption. Look, in my home city of Austin, Texas, we have Austin City Limits, which decade after decade after decade has chronicled American music. And if they had a bad season and it was private TV, they just would have shut it down. And we wouldn't have had decade after decade after decade of Austin City Limits. That's the amazing thing about public broadcasting. I have a lot of public housing residents in the San Antonio side of my district, and when I talk to them and they hear about what's going on in Washington, D.C., they talk about Texas Public Radio. And I just heard my colleagues talking about educational programming for kids on YouTube. That stuff is loaded with ads. And also on other forms of private television, they're selling you and your kids stuff, making people feel bad. They're trying to make a profit off of you. That's why I got sat in front of Mr. Rogers, because you got to learn something and they weren't just trying to sell you junk. It's better for our kids, it's better for our families, and we should actually be supporting public broadcasting instead of this stuff. Madam Chair, leave Elmo alone. Bring Elon in for questioning instead.
I now recognize Mr. Timmons from South Carolina for 5 minutes.
Lady yields back, and now I'll call on Mr. Casar from Texas for his questions for 5 minutes.
Thank you. I want to focus my time today on something you won't hear much about from my Republican colleagues, and frankly, I don't think we're hearing enough about in the news, but it is what I believe is Donald Trump's most dangerous attack on the rights of working people thus far. Last Thursday night, President Trump signed an executive order that fundamentally undercuts union and labor rights that Americans have counted on for 100 years. The executive order strips the rights to organize and to bargain away from 1.5 million federal employees, and that's just where he wants to start. So for over 100 years, Americans have joined together in unions to fight to win everything from child labor laws to the minimum wage to the 40-hour work week. For over 100 years, unions have protected their members and lifted up all American workers. For more than 100 years, our unions have empowered Americans to stand up against the greedy and the ultra-rich that try to use our government to take away your money. They have stood up against people like Elon Musk, who think everyone else was put on earth to just make them richer. But again, Donald Trump, at the behest of the ultra-rich, has signed this executive order, robbing 1.5 million Americans of the fundamental right to come together alongside their coworkers to fight for better wages and better working conditions. And if the president is allowed to exploit a loophole in order to end the federal right to bargain, that's not where he's going to stop. He will be coming for your right to bargain and to organize next. This attack will not end with these federal workers unless we put a stop to it. But let's discuss who Donald Trump is starting with by trying to take away their rights. These federal workers are people dedicated to serving the public. Doctors at the VA, food safety inspectors at the Department of Agriculture, IRS employees who go after corporations who cheat on their taxes. This includes our janitors, food service workers, administrative employees, all losing the right to organize and bargain that workers have fought and bled for and marched for over 100 years. This executive order is illegal, full stop. Trump does not have the authority to take bargaining rights away from these workers, and it's already being challenged in court. But the president is trying to see what he can get away with after stacking the Supreme Court with not just right-wing justices, but justices picked by some of the richest people and biggest corporations in the country. This committee should be talking about this. It should really be the only thing that this committee on, quote, the workforce is discussing this week. But right now, instead, we've had kind of a business as usual committee hearing on healthcare. So let's talk about how Trump taking away collective bargaining rights impacts healthcare. Federal employees will continue to be fired without due process because they don't have union representation, and they'll lose their healthcare. CDC employees that are protecting us from the next pandemic can be fired without the security of a collective bargaining agreement. Justice Department lawyers prosecuting things like healthcare fraud can lose their jobs because they're not Trump's political lackeys, but they've lost protections in collective bargaining. These are real impacts, and we should be talking about them. So my question, Mr. Chairman, is whether we can hold a hearing on President Trump's executive order to strip bargaining rights away from 1.5 million Americans.
This hearing is about employer health care plans. We will take your question under consideration.
I appreciate that. It would be good for us to talk about, since we are the folks here that talk about education in the workforce, 1.5 million Americans losing their right to bargain. I can't think of another moment in American history where in just one day that many Americans have lost that basic labor right. So I would request that we have that hearing, if we could have it at the next meeting, or we could have a hearing about how a Trump executive order has gotten rid of the minimum wage for federal contractors, or the firing of equal employment opportunity commissioners who are tasked with stopping discrimination in employment. And so, Mr. Chairman, thank you for taking it under consideration, and I will continue to bring up this issue if we don't have a hearing on the fact that 1.5 million Americans just lost their bargaining rights. I would be interested in whether the Republican majority is trying to take away bargaining rights from even more union workers, or whether they're thinking about giving those bargaining rights back. But we know union members vote both Democratic and Republican, as they always have. And I just think it's really important for those union members to know whether the Republican majority and President Trump wants to take away their bargaining rights that they've had for over 100 years. Thank you.
The gentleman yields, and now I will, let's see. Yeah, okay. So now I'll call on Mr. Sonier for a closing statement. Yeah.
All right. I want to thank the chairman, and I really look forward to, I'm happy to work with my colleagues. Clearly, the system has worked. I think if we as people,
that more than 5 million Americans can lose their health care because of the Medicaid cuts being pushed by Republican members of Congress. So, of course, Republicans on the Government Efficiency Committee are holding an emergency hearing on semi-pro fencing. Not fences like the kind that goes around a building, but like the sport with the swords. And I've knocked on thousands of doors and talked to thousands of Republican, Independent, and Democratic voters in my career. And not a single time has someone flung open their door and said, "Thank God you're here, Congressman. I want to ask you about transgender people fencing." It's just never happened. I've never even met a fencer before. I've just seen it on The Parent Trap. I'm sure it's a great sport, but what the hell are we doing here? Seriously, we're here because Chairwoman Marjorie Taylor Greene thinks that if she picks on vulnerable people, like trans folks, she can avoid having a discussion about the allegations of insider trading against her. She thinks that she can distract from the fact that Trump and MAGA Republicans are raising your costs every single day, suppressing your wages every single day, stealing your taxpayer dollars every single day, and threatening your health care. That's the reason we're at this crazy hearing today. Here we are in a subcommittee supposedly about government efficiency, spending hours upon hours trashing trans people and talking about trans folks in sports. There's more members on this committee than there are trans people in all of college sports. Of the 500,000 student athletes in America, about 10 of them are trans. Not 10,000, 10. In Olympics, there are even fewer. So in my opinion, sports leagues will do a much better job than politicians up here on this committee coming up with fair and thoughtful ways of handling who does and who does not qualify for which sports. But I think that instead of picking on LGBT people, politicians in this country should be singularly focused on improving the economy for every single working American. That's my crazy idea. Ms. Goss-Graves, Republicans have called an emergency hearing on trans athletes in the sport of fencing today. Can you tell me, how many college fencers are there total in the entire United States?
I think about 1,000.
Compare that to, do you know how many people rely on Medicaid in this country?
That's more like 80 million.
And Social Security?
That's more like 70 million.
So 80 million people rely on Medicaid, 70 million people on Social Security. We're talking about 1,000 college fencers, period. How many hearings do you think this committee has held on Elon Musk pushing Social Security to the brink of collapse?
Oh, my God.
I don't think any.
0 hearings. How about how many hearings have we had about the millions of Americans who could lose Medicaid because of the cuts Republicans are pushing today?
Well, 0.
That is correct. 0 hearings on these issues that impact us all. Republicans have called hearing after hearing obsessed with trans folks in sports, which of course only affects a tiny sliver of Americans, but no hearings on Medicaid, no hearings on Social Security, no hearings on raising wages and lowering costs. So if you're sitting at home watching, you need to know the goal of this hearing is for Republicans to distract you from their own lies, their own corruption, and their own failure. The goal of this hearing is to make sure that Fox News has something to talk about other than Elon Musk getting billions of dollars a year in government contracts while cutting services for you. The goal of this hearing is to make sure that Fox News has something else to talk about other than Chairwoman Marjorie Taylor Greene's alleged insider trading. It's a sick reality right now in American politics that right-wing Republican officials think that picking on trans people is how they'll earn more votes and raise more money. They pick on Americans that are already facing discrimination and violence, and they're making those challenges worse. They're trying to pull the oldest trick in the book. Next time you go vote, ask yourself if these second-rate schoolyard bullies are looking out for you or if they're scammers just like the man that holds their leash.
The gentleman's time has expired. It's important to point out that Democrat members today are not asking the two young ladies that are here representing their sports, and this is what the hearing is about today. I now recognize Chairman Comer from Kentucky.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to start with a quick round of yes or no questions for each of our four witnesses.
Witnesses are reminded you're under oath and you're here to answer questions to the committee. I now recognize Mr. Casar from Texas for 5 minutes.
Chairwoman Greene, you and my Republican colleagues have called this hearing that is all about cutting off money to nonprofits for things that are, quote, contrary to the national interest. What we've heard here is my Republican colleagues going after nuns and priests that feed immigrants, going after nonprofits that do scary things like support our queer youth. It is astounding to me. But we do have one nonprofit leader here, Mr. Krikorian. Mr. Krikorian, you're the director of the Center for Immigration Studies, correct?
Yes.
And according to your organization's website, you do receive taxpayer funding or have from the Department of Justice and the Census Bureau.
Yeah, we did research contracts for them many years ago.
Got it. And so you do have a taxpayer-funded nonprofit, and your nonprofit, as we've discussed in committee before, has shared articles from Kevin McDonald, whose work argues that Jewish people, alleged by him, are genetically driven to destroy Western societies. Is that correct?
We distributed no such article.
But you did distribute work from this anti-Semite, correct?
We distributed work all across the spectrum,
Right,
from New York
from this
Times
anti-Semite
to anyone
comment.
else.
Got
yes.
it, okay. Your organization has also circulated an article by Holocaust denier John Friend. Is that correct? We said last time we were in a hearing that yes, you have.
We've distributed no articles about Holocaust denial, obviously. It has
But you
nothing to
have
do
from
with us.
Holocaust denier John Friend?
I don't know, but I assume so, yeah.
Your website right here does
Okay.
talk about that.
Yeah.
So I have a yes or no question. Is promoting the work of Holocaust deniers and anti-Semites contrary to the national interest?
Promoting Holocaust denial and what have you is contrary to the national interest. That's why we haven't done it.
But you have promoted the work of Holocaust deniers. John Friend.
There were several examples. We've also promoted the work of Open Borders people in that effort to present a broad range of views. Yeah, absolutely. And we don't endorse one way or the other.
So you have promoted the work of Holocaust deniers, but have you received anything from Doge asking whether they want to cut your funding? Have Republicans called you in to ask about your nonprofit and said, hey, we don't like that you've promoted the work of Holocaust deniers? Have you had any funding cut by Doge or by this committee?
We don't get any funding to be cut.
But you have received Department of Justice funding. And
Decades ago, yes, yeah.
And so, look, let me just be real clear here. This hearing is not about taking on nonprofits that are going, quote, against the national interest or who are, quote, extreme. This is all about trying to shut down nonprofits who might share political views that are different from that of the President of the United States. This hearing, they're going after organizations they call radical because they're kind to kids that are having trouble in school, kind to kids that are trying to figure out who they are in the world. They're going after nonprofits, and you, sir, and your nonprofit are saying that the radical people are the priests and nuns that feed the hungry, the nonprofit organizations that, yeah, give shelter to immigrants, that I understand your Center of Immigration Studies does not like immigration very much. But let me tell you, the radical folks aren't the folks out there doing good. The radical folks that you might disagree with, their version of the good, but the radical folks are the people that in your face come to this committee hearing and are sharing through their websites, through their listservs, articles by Holocaust deniers. And you're saying, yeah, we didn't share the Holocaust denying articles, but we shared some of his other stuff. I'll make my last point here clear. I represent Texas. I have long-standing ties to the city of El Paso, where in 2019, 23 people were murdered at a Walmart. The murderer said, quote, it was based on the Hispanic invasion of Texas. And after the shooting, Mr. Krikorian, you said that the manifesto was, quote, remarkably well written. Can you tell us which part of his manifesto was remarkably well written?
What I meant by that was that it seemed improbable for a nutcase like that to have written something that was relatively, at least grammatically correct. That was my point.
Look, folks here on this committee are trying to shut down nonprofits because they disagree with them. Your nonprofit and you, sir, saying that the El Paso shooter had a manifesto that's
The gentleman's
well-written,
time has
that is
expired.
extreme,
The
and
gentleman's
what goes around comes around.
The gentleman's time
important.
has expired.
Chairwoman, okay.
I now recognize Mr. Jack from Georgia for 5
Chairwoman, I
minutes.
just want to make clear
Thank you,
that
Madam
what goes
Chair.
around can come
and
around.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As one
Gentleman, I recognize the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Casar.
Secretary McMahon, thank you for joining us here today. Right now, the administration that you're a part of is pushing for a massive tax break for billionaires, paid for by massive cuts to health care and food assistance for everyday Americans, including to the children that you're charged with educating. You yourself and your family, as a billionaire family of wealth of about $3.2 billion, can you share with us, do you know how much you and your family will receive in tax benefit if this Republican tax proposal gets pushed through?
No, I've not sat down and worked with my accountants on what tax. I can tell you most.
You have
of the
a general sense?
Well, I
Is
can
it
tell you
millions
last
or
time
tens of millions?
taxes went through, I paid more.
And so you think that under this proposal, you will not, like the other billionaires, get millions or tens of millions of dollars in tax benefit?
I think this is kind of a ridiculous line of
No, it's
questioning.
not ridiculous, because here's what's important. The biggest bill being pushed by your administration for your average extremely wealthy person would give about a $4 million benefit. Your family's worth about $3.2 billion, so I imagine that you'd get millions of dollars in benefit from this tax bill. Does that make sense? Does that check out?
I don't know. I'd have to let you know.
Let's just
I'd ask the member
Chairman,
how this refers to
read
education.
my question. I'll refer to that,
policy.
Secretary. So, okay, look, there are families watching at home from my district that could lose their health care, and they want to know why their health care would get taken away, and what it's paying for is overwhelmingly tax cuts for the wealthiest people in the country. And so what would you spend the $4 million on that you would get a benefit of at least $4 million?
Let's get to your educational line of questioning.
What would those
that we
families
deal with in this committee?
What would those families who lose their health care, who are watching, what would you spend the $4 million on that's worth more than their health care?
I'm not going to address the questions relative to me personally. I'm here as the Secretary of Education, and I'm
Okay, so
happy
as the Secretary
to
of
answer the
Education,
questions
then,
relative to education.
as the Secretary of Education, do you think, yes or no, that kids will do better off in school if they have health care and their food needs met? Yes or no?
We all do better, and children will do better in school if their health needs are met. I agree with that.
Good. And so I guess for those kids, which there's going to be hundreds of thousands or millions of kids that lose their health care, how is it okay that they're going to lose their health care so that billionaires and billionaire families I'm not just even picking just on you, but billionaire families like your own can get a tax break. What, if you don't even know how many millions of dollars it is you'd get, how is that worth it?
I'm not going to respond to your question.
I think the answer is because it's not worth it. It's not. If you got 3.2 billion or 5 billion or 10 billion dollars,
going off the premise that there's going to be health care that is going to be removed from these children, I'm not sure that is a correct premise. So
every single organization that's looked at this bill knows that millions of people will lose their health care. The latest estimate is at least 11 million people and families, because you wouldn't get the enormous savings that the Republican majority on this committee is looking for unless you kick those millions of people off of their health care. So how can we educate our kids if they don't have a roof over their heads, if they can't see a doctor, if they don't have food assistance? So I'll ask you, do you think it's right for kids to not have food to eat at home before they go to class in order to make sure that a billionaire that doesn't even know how many more millions of dollars they're going to get could just get a few million more?
I want to make sure that as the Secretary of the Department of Education, that the president's plan to make school choice available to every student in our country is what we follow.
And the president's plan specifically takes money away from those kids, specifically takes food away from those families, specifically takes money and sends it to big contractors, big companies, and sends millions of dollars to billionaires like you who don't even know how many extra millions of dollars they're going to get. Before I was a member of Congress, I helped run an after-school program at a high school where many of the kids were getting driven to school in the same car that they slept in at night. They didn't have food. Many of them couldn't see a doctor. They struggled in class. We should be passing a bill to make sure that they've got a decent classroom experience, a roof over their head, food, and health care, not a bill that just funnels who knows, in your opinion, how many millions of dollars to billionaires like those in President Trump's
Gentleman's
cabinet.
time has expired. I now recognize the gentleman from...
As is Mr. Casar from Texas for 5 minutes.
Good afternoon, governors. Republicans have dragged you in today for questioning because they say your immigration policies are dangerous for American citizens. So I want to ask each of you some questions about recent events affecting U.S. citizens. Governor Pritzker, was it your administration or was it the Trump administration that arrested a 10-year-old U.S. citizen recovering from brain cancer and sent her to Mexico?
It was the Trump administration, sir.
Correct. That was the Trump administration. Governor Walz, was it your administration or was it the Trump administration that jailed an American for days, alleging he was in the country illegally, despite him being a U.S. citizen?
I believe that was the Trump administration.
That's correct. That was the Trump administration. Governor Hochul, was it your administration or was it the Trump administration that arrested a totally innocent U.S. citizen, pregnant woman who wound up in the hospital after her detention?
Those horrific situations are all the results of the Trump administration's over-enforcement of our laws.
That was just this week, and that's correct.
That's
that
right.
was the Trump administration. Let me be clear. Democratic governors who are trying to protect the rights of all of us are not the real danger that we face. Donald Trump's reckless immigration policies are what is putting us at risk, U.S. citizens included. Trump and his puppets here in Congress put out a constant stream of lies about immigration. So let me summarize what is really going on here. Trump has ordered law enforcement agencies to focus not on violent criminals, but on indiscriminately rounding up as many people as possible. Trump is targeting people going to work at Home Depot and 7-Eleven, ignoring gangs. Trump is targeting people trying to follow the rules and go to a court hearing, ignoring those who commit real violence. And then there's the kids. Imagine just for a moment that they're your kids. Law enforcement raids at our schools. Kids with their hands zip-tied behind their backs. multiple U.S. citizen children with cancer deported to foreign countries, separated from their treatment, their care, and their doctors. This is not just about immigrant families. Donald Trump is undermining the rights that protect all of us, no matter who we are and where we come from. People are being arrested without ever having been accused of a crime, held for days without contact with their families or their lawyers, people being deported in violation of judicial orders. Trump also is going after anyone who dares try to put up guardrails against this, arresting judges, arresting mayors, arresting members of Congress and union leaders. This is not law. This is not order. This is chaos, and it's dangerous for all of us. Around the country right now, people are peacefully protesting to show the world the awful things the Trump administration is doing, tearing families and communities apart, ignoring the rule of law, making us all less safe. And please know, if you're one of those peaceful demonstrators, I hear you, I see you, I have your back. So many of you are suffering because someone you love is terrified or has been unjustly taken away from you by this administration. But Donald Trump does not want people to hear your message. That's why he's taken National Guard troops and the Marines away from their jobs and has sent them to Los Angeles, breaking all the rules about how protests like this are handled. Trump and Governor Abbott have even sent troops to my district in downtown San Antonio, a place that has been perfectly orderly and peaceful. Because, as always, we know Donald Trump is trying to stoke up chaos and division, and he doesn't care who gets hurt in the process. He wants to start a fire, pour gasoline on it, and blame somebody else for the flames. So if you're watching at home and you see images of disorder or chaos in the coming days, remember this: it's Donald Trump's fire. It's him who lit the fire, and he does not care if the rest of us get burned. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Chair now recognizes Mr. Fallon from Texas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Governor Welch, would you say that one of the most important things any governor, or quite frankly, any elected
Buenas tardes, McGowan! Buenas tardes, McGowan! How are we feeling down here? How are we feeling up top? I'm Greg Casar, and I'm proud to represent the heart of Texas and the United States Congress, and to welcome Bernie Sanders back to our state. You know, there's some people who have told me they don't understand why Senator Sanders would fly all the way from Vermont down to South Texas. There are some people, and it's those people who have this Texas-sized hole in their vision of the future of our country. They've just written us off. Tenemos corazón. There's those same people that say that the RGV has been bought off by billionaires, by Elon Musk, and that there's no getting it back. Short-sighted people who think that Texans are so divided that we just deserve this, that Latino communities and small-town communities in Texas deserve what we're getting. I don't think that's right. There's people who think that this is the best that we can do. But y'all, I refuse to believe that this is the best that we can do. A state where our president and our governor work for the billionaires instead of the working class. Is that the best that we can do? A state where it gets harder and harder to scrape by while campaign contributors and their Republican puppets get them tax breaks and government contracts. Is that really the best we can do? A state where every damn Republican that we send to Congress, instead of helping us, is trying to kick us off of our health care in order to make their friends more money? Is that really the best that we can do?
A state where you have to worry about your family being ripped away from you on the way to school or on the way to work when they've done nothing wrong, getting ripped away from you for no damn reason? Is that the best that we can do? Do we deserve that? Texas, it's time for a change, am I right? It's time for a change. Anyone who wants you to believe that this is the best that Texas can do does not know their history. Texans won Juneteenth. Texans won Roe v. Wade. Texas is the birthplace of the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act and Medicaid and Medicare. And I'm going to tell you right now, right here, that this place, McAllen, Texas, can be the birthplace of a new Democratic Party that puts working people first, kicks out the corrupt politicians regardless of party, and saves our country for everyday people. And here's how I know, because I've seen Texans do it before. I didn't start out my career in Congress or in the C-suite or in the courthouse. I started it as a labor organizer on construction sites. And y'all know what a Texas construction site looks like. There's black workers, brown workers, white workers, immigrant workers, documented, undocumented, native-born workers, people that cross the border, people where the border crossed us. And it's a couple hundred guys with at least a couple hundred opinions. But my job was to bring everybody together. And we could all agree, no matter who you were and where you come from, that the guys out there working overtime in the hot Texas sun deserve a raise, and the billionaires in the white, big, tall, glitzy towers could afford to pay for a raise. But sometimes we'd encounter a big-time real estate developer who just didn't want to pay. You guys know the type. The kind of guy that tried to say the rules didn't apply to him and tried to make himself feel bigger by saying stuff like, "You're fired." You know the type. You know, with a cheap spray tan and they like to put their name on everything. The type who got millions of dollars for his business from his dad and then likes to call himself a genius. You know, he's got tons of money and thinks that everybody was put on earth to make him richer, but he tries to cut your health care so he can put another zero next to his paycheck. You guys know the type. And every time, those developers would try to play the oldest trick in the book. They would try to divide native workers from immigrant workers, pitting brown against white against black. They wanted people to fight each other so the rich could keep on getting richer. All this is to say, I've seen Donald Trump's playbook up close before. But I have good news. Every single time that working people united and stuck together and didn't fall for the tricks, we won. I've seen Texans win a raise, win health care, win retirement, win child care, win their rights. We won because there's nothing more powerful in America than working people who refuse to be divided. You see, in Texas, our playbook is old too. When working people have stood together in this state, we've won our country back. Let me tell you, they're trying to divide us. They're trying to say that the division will get worse and worse and worse so they can take over this part of our country. But let me tell you right now, Elon Musk does not own the valley. Monica de la Cruz does not own our votes. Donald Trump does not own our country. He just doesn't. And guys, we can win this change. We need this change badly. We need this change today. Because being here in South Texas, talking to y'all, I know the devastation that Trump is wreaking every single day on our families. Let's hear it. We know he's trying to intimidate us, but I don't want to sugarcoat what he's doing. ICE showing up at schools and churches. People here with legal status, a man deported to a foreign prison because they called his autism awareness tattoo a gang symbol. A 10-year-old U.S. citizen Texas girl with brain cancer deported where she was out of reach from her doctors. And I know so many mixed status families and undocumented people who have lived here for decades without doing anything wrong, who are terrified that they could be next. If you wake up every day afraid for yourself or afraid for a loved one, I want you to know, from me and from the senator, I see you, I hear you, and we're gonna fight like hell for you. And what's just so sick about it is these right-wing politicians, they eat food cooked by immigrants. They get their fancy cars cleaned by immigrants. They do their corrupt deals and buildings built and engineered and maintained and cleaned by immigrants. And then they have the gall to turn around and say that immigrants are the problem. Give me a break. Guess what? An asylum seeker did not raise your rent. A Wall Street hedge fund did. A dreamer did not cut your health care, but a big-time campaign donor and their Republican puppet politician sure as hell did. And it's gotta stop, and we've gotta stop them. We've gotta vote them out. We gotta vote them out. Keep it going. We're going to vote them out. And I'm here to tell you how we're going to do it. The people who supposedly represent you right here in McAllen, Texas, like Republican Congresswoman De La Cruz, like your Republican senators, they're doing a very dangerous, but also a very unpopular and very stupid thing. They're trying to pass a billionaire budget. And everybody needs to know and tell all of their neighbors about this budget. There's three things you need to know. First, it's the biggest tax cut for billionaires in American history. Second, it's the biggest cut to health care in American history. And third, it's the biggest cut to food assistance in American history. Right here in De La Cruz's district, she's trying to kick 66,000 people off of their health care and raise the cost of health care for everybody else by about $2,000. Does that sound like what people voted for? Does that sound popular? If you look up oligarchy in the dictionary, there should just be a big picture of this bill. Oligarchy is this: the billionaires get richer, everyone else here gets screwed. That's what they're doing. And that's where we all come in. Because Texas Democrats, independents, Republicans, progressives, conservatives, all of them, they hate this kind of a scam. That's why me and Bernie are here in McAllen. That's why we're here. Because Donald Trump built support here by lying to everyone to their face. He said he was going to be on the side of workers, and he's only on the side of his rich friends, and he's proving it. He's proving it. That's why, right after this, we're headed to Amarillo and Fort Worth, traditionally conservative areas. Because we are in a moment where it's not just left versus right. It's the billionaires versus everyone else. And we have to go talk to everyone else. Everyone that feels betrayed and lied to. And people ask me all the time, Greg, what should I do? Here's something you can do. You can do the exact same thing that Bernie and I are doing. Raise your hand if you know someone who voted for Donald Trump. It's basically everyone here. Keep it raised. Raise your hand if you voted for somebody that sat out this election. Keep your hands raised. Now, keep your hand raised. Now, only lower your hand if the person you're thinking about is a billionaire. Okay, so everybody, if you have your hand raised because the person you're thinking about isn't a billionaire, that means you have someone to go talk to. You know someone that's been screwed over. You have someone whose vote you can change. The person you're thinking of might get kicked off their health care, might have their hospital closed. They've had their costs go up. And if they're not a billionaire, they're not getting anything good out of this deal. Hint that we know that Trump said he was going to go after gangs. But he's coming after our families. He's coming after teachers and firefighters and moms and dads and kids, citizens and non-citizens alike. They didn't vote for that. Nobody voted for that. So McAllen, our job is to go and talk to our family. Go and talk to our coworkers. Some of those folks may even be here in this room. Have a conversation. We may not be able to convince everyone, but person by person, we go and build a bigger team. You can be that organizer, that labor organizer. You can build a bigger team. When working people stand together, when we look past some of our differences, we can defeat the corrupt politicians and their billionaire donors. We need to do it because if we don't do it in Texas, we're screwed all over the country. It's up to each and every one of you. We're going to put it all on the line. Each and every one of us has to put it on the line. We can save people's health care, save countless lives, save our families from being ripped apart, save our democracy, save our country. It's in our hands, guys. It's in our hands. But there's one last thing I want to say to y'all before I call Senator Sanders up. If we do this and we win back the Valley, we transform our party, we kick out people like Monica de la Cruz and Greg Abbott. If we do that, the Democratic Party cannot leave places like McAllen behind ever again. I'm going to say it again. The Democratic Party cannot leave the Valley behind ever again, cannot forget working people ever again, cannot cater to corporate interests instead of the people pulling 712s here in the Valley working harder than any damn politician. We can't leave them behind. First order of business, we got to raise the minimum wage from $7.25 to $17 an hour. Second order of business, we've got to tax billionaires to cut costs of childcare, housing, healthcare, and create great jobs and great schools right here in the RGV. And maybe we stop picking on gay Americans and women and immigrants and instead expand people's rights. The right to reproductive freedom, the right to a union, a pathway to citizenship for our families. Let's make people's lives better. There can be a better world after this one here in Texas. And to make it all stick, here's the big revolutionary idea. We get big money out of politics. That means banning stock trading by politicians, getting these super PACs out of our elections, and making it so that some lobbying group doesn't get to pick your politician. Voters get to unelect and elect your leaders. That's how it should be in the RGV. I know it feels hard right now. I know it can feel far off. I know that the road is long, and you've probably been promised stuff like this by tons of politicians. The road is long. It can feel sometimes like you just got to give up. And I feel that way sometimes. But then when I have that thought cross my mind, I think about a guy who has never given up. A guy who's been spreading this message day after day after day. No matter what people say, he keeps telling the truth. He's our champion for working people in this country. He's our warrior against the corruption and the cruelty. He's all of our Senator. McAllen, I'm proud to call up our Senator, Senator Bernie Sanders. Buenas tardes, McAllen! Buenas tardes, McAllen! How are we feeling down here? How are we feeling up top? I'm Greg Casar, and I'm proud to represent the heart of Texas and the United States Congress, and to welcome Bernie Sanders back to our state. You know, there's some people who have told me they don't understand why Senator Sanders would fly all the way from Vermont down to South Texas. There are some people, and it's those people who have this Texas-sized hole in their vision of the future of our country. They've just written us off. Tenemos corazón. There's those same people that say that the RGV has been bought off by billionaires, by Elon Musk, and that there's no getting it back. Short-sighted people who think that Texans are so divided that we just deserve this, that Latino communities and small-town communities in Texas deserve what we're getting. I don't think that's right. There's people who think that this is the best that we can do. But y'all, I refuse to believe that this is the best that we can do. A state where our president and our governor work for the billionaires instead of the working class. Is that the best that we can do? A state where it gets harder and harder to scrape by while campaign contributors and their Republican puppets get them tax breaks and government contracts. Is that really the best we can do? A state where every damn Republican that we send to Congress, instead of helping us, is trying to kick us off of our health care in order to make their friends more money? Is that really the best that we can do? A state where you have to worry about your family being ripped away from you on the way to school or on the way to work when they've done nothing wrong, getting ripped away from you for no damn reason? Is that the best that we can do? Do we deserve that? Texas, it's time for a change, am I right? It's time for a change. Anyone who wants you to believe that this is the best that Texas can do does not know their history. Texans won Juneteenth. Texans won Roe v. Wade. Texas is the birthplace of the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act and Medicaid and Medicare. And I'm going to tell you right now, right here, that this place, McAllen, Texas, can be the birthplace of a new Democratic Party that puts working people first, kicks out the corrupt politicians regardless of party, and saves our country for everyday people. Buenas tardes, Fort Worth! I'm Greg Casar, and I'm proud to represent the heart of Texas in the United States Congress. And before I give y'all the speech that I had prepared for today, I want to say a few words about the news from last night that Donald Trump ordered strikes against Iran without authorization from Congress. Let me start out by clearly saying, under the United States Constitution,
The president cannot go to war without a vote of Congress and without the consent of the American people right here in North Texas. It is illegal for Donald Trump to drag us into another endless war. Congress must vote right now on a war powers resolution to make clear that no president can send us into another war in the Middle East. No new wars. No new wars. My entire adult life, politicians have promised quick and easy conflicts in the Middle East. And then year after year after year after year, they send other people's kids to fight and die in these endless conflicts. And like every other member of my generation, I know too many people who came home from the Middle East with devastating injuries, with PTSD, and with people who never came home. No more. Enough. Enough. Fort Worth, Donald Trump promised peace and stability. He has no right to plunge us into another endless war. Donald Trump put a Fox News host in charge of the Pentagon. He has no right to put American lives at risk with his reckless approach. Donald Trump has fired thousands of people who care for our wounded veterans. He has no right to send more people into war who he will not care for when they come back. He has no right. No new wars. 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 So Fort Worth, I am proud that we've welcomed back to our state someone who's always been a champion against reckless wars, Senator Bernie Sanders. Look, there's some people who don't understand or say they don't get why Bernie would fly from Vermont down to North Texas. It's the kind of people who think that billionaires like Elon Musk have bought our state off for good. It's those kind of people who think that working Texans are so divided that we'll never take power back from the rich. People who think this is the best Texas can do. But we know better, don't we? We know better. Look, we're in a state where our president and our governor work for the billionaires rather than their own constituents. Is that the best we can do? A state where working people work overtime, 2-3 jobs, and can't afford the basics, but campaign donors keep on getting richer and richer off government contracts. Is that the best we can do? A state where every Republican we send to Congress campaigns saying they're going to work for us, and then they vote to kick millions of us off our health care to give billionaire tax cuts. Is that the best we can do? Anyone who thinks that's the best we can do does not know their Texas history. Texans won Juneteenth. Texans won Roe v. Wade. Texas birthed Medicaid and Medicare and Head Start and the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act. And right here, right now, Texas can birth a new kind of Democratic Party that puts working class people first, kicks out corrupt politicians of every party, and saves our damn country. We can do that right here in Dallas-Fort Worth. And let me tell you how I know.
because I didn't start my career in Congress or in a courtroom or in a C-suite. I started out as a labor organizer on construction sites. And you guys know a Texas construction site, 200 guys, black, white, brown, immigrant, and native born, people with all sorts of opinions. But we could work together to agree on at least one thing. The wealthy real estate developer making millions could certainly afford to pay the guys working out in the sun a hell of a lot more. We could all agree on that. But you know, sometimes we'd encounter one of those developers who didn't want to pay. You guys know the type, the kind of guy who tries to make himself feel big by saying things like, "You're fired," and have a cheap spray tan and like to put their name on everything. The type who thinks every working person was put on earth to make him richer. That's all to say, I've seen Donald Trump's type before, and I've seen his playbook too. And when I was a labor organizer, every wealthy real estate developer that didn't want to give folks a raise used the same playbook. He would try to pit native-born workers against immigrant workers, black against white against brown, have us fight each other so the rich could get richer. But our playbook would work too, when we stuck together, when we didn't allow him to divide us. When we stood in union, we beat his playbook every time and won better wages here in Texas, better health care, won retirement, better working conditions, and a better life. We won because there's nothing more powerful in American history than working people who refuse to be divided. And Fort Worth, that's how we're going to win. That's how we're going to win. Because Elon Musk does not own our state. Craig Goldman does not own our votes. And Donald Trump does not own our country. You guys do. We do. And it's never been more important for us to come together. Because as we speak, Trump and Craig Goldman and Ted Cruz and John Cornyn are trying to ram through a billionaire budget. You can understand this billionaire budget with just two facts. First, it is the biggest billionaire tax cut in American history. Second, it gets worse. It's paid for by the biggest cut in health care in American history. Here in Congressman Craig Goldman's district, it would kick 35,000 people off of their health care, just right here alone. Think of that, 35,000 of your neighbors unable to go to a doctor because Craig Goldman's campaign contributors want a second yacht or a third private jet. That's not right. Is that right? We don't need a dictionary here in Texas to know what oligarchy is. It's what Republican puppet congresspeople do every day. They try to make sure the rich get richer while everybody else gets screwed. No more of that. And while they're robbing us blind, they're also ripping families apart and putting all of our rights at risk. We know it here in Texas. ICE showing up at schools and at churches. A man here with legal status getting deported to a foreign prison because his autism awareness tattoo they want to call a gang symbol. A 10-year-old Texan, U.S. citizen with brain cancer, deported away from her doctors because their parents are immigrants. That's not right. If you wake up afraid every day that someone that you love could be taken away from you on their way to work or on their way to school for no damn reason, I want you to know that I hear you, I see you, and we're going to fight like hell for you.
Because an asylum seeker did not raise your rent, a Wall Street hedge fund did. Because a dreamer did not cut your health care, but a right-wing politician sellout sure as hell did. Fort Worth, we've got to make it stop. And that's where we all come in. Sure, Senator Sanders will do more than his fair share. Beto O'Rourke will do more than his fair share. We'll do what we can. But we need everybody here in this fight. Because you see, in Texas, everybody that's not a billionaire is getting screwed by their Republican congresspeople right now. Donald Trump won votes here in Tarrant County by lying to people. And our job is to go talk to everyone that feels betrayed by him. So I want to say, if you are here and you voted for Donald Trump, but you're fed up with his billionaire first policies, you are welcome here, and thank you for being here tonight. And everyone here tonight can go do exactly what Bernie and I are doing. Go and talk to people. So let's do one exercise. Raise your hand if a coworker or a family member or a loved one you know voted for Donald Trump or sat out the last election. Keep those hands up. That looks like thousands of hands. Keep them up. Now, if the person you're thinking of happens to be a billionaire, put your hand down. But if they're not, put them up, hold them up if they're not a billionaire. Oh yeah, it looks like all the hands are staying up. The person you're thinking of is getting screwed over by Donald Trump right now. You have someone to talk to if your hand is up. We don't have to go talk to them on the most hot button issues. Talk to them about the biggest thing that matters. Billionaires are getting a tax cut while they're getting screwed over. That's what we can go talk to people about. That's how we bring everybody on board. That's how everyone here is an organizer. That's how we win. Are y'all ready to win? Are y'all ready to do it? Now here comes the last part of my speech, and I think in some ways the most important. After we defeat Craig Goldman and Greg Abbott and John Cornyn and Ken Paxton, after we're done with that important business, after we're done with that, the Democratic Party cannot leave behind working class people in Fort Worth ever again. Ever again. Once we've run them out of office, first order of business, we raise the minimum wage from $7.25 to $17 an hour, period. Second order of business, we raise taxes on billionaires to cut housing costs, to cut the cost of health care, to cut the cost of child care. And we invest in great jobs and great schools right here in North Texas. And you know how these sellouts talk about the end of Social Security? Well, here's something you need to know. If Mark Zuckerberg, if we passed a law so that the Mark Zuckerbergs of the world have to pay the same tax rate into Social Security as a school teacher, then we could save Social Security for generations to come, and we can have it expanded so we pull every senior out of poverty in our country forever. And the young people here wouldn't have to send a check to their parents to keep them alive. How's that sound? And now another radical idea. Instead of politicians getting elected to pick on gay Americans or immigrants or women, how about we expand people's rights? What if we give everyone the right to reproductive freedom? How about that? Everybody the right to time off to raise their kids. Give everybody the right to a union and a living wage. Give people a right to a pathway to citizenship. And here's how we make it all stick, which is we have to be different than the Democratic Party of the past by doing this: getting big money out of politics. We make it illegal for politicians to trade in stocks. We ban super PACs. We get corporate money out of elections. And we make it so that lobbyists don't get to pick politicians. You get to elect and unelect your own leaders. It's not going to be easy. People are going to tell you to give up. But there's one man who's never given up. He's been consistent year after year after year. He's never given up on that long road. It's my deep honor to bring up a man who has been paving this road for all of us, who saw the need to take on the billionaires before they were running Trump's cabinet meetings. He's our champion for working people, our champion against the cruelty and the corruption, our champion and warrior for peace, Senator Bernie Sanders.
Time has expired. I now recognize Mr. Casar from Texas for 5 minutes.
Good morning. Today, Republicans have called this DOGE hearing called Locking in the DOGE Cuts, Ending Waste, Fraud, and Abuse for Good. And I'm deeply concerned about the cuts that DOGE has made to services for our veterans. So I want to ask our pro-DOGE witnesses today some questions about those cuts. So, Mr. Lips, ProPublica reported that DOGE cuts have stalled life-saving clinical trials for our veterans with head and neck cancer, otherwise known as throat cancer. Can you tell me, are life-saving clinical trials for our veterans waste, or are they fraud, or are they abuse?
I think that's an area of government that is certainly vital, and that there's many things that can be done to improve VA services. I do not know all that DOGE has done for the VA, and I think that if there's anywhere where you could repurpose funds from these wastes that we're talking about, hundreds of billions of dollars misspent.
But if they cut the clinical trials that are helping our veterans with throat cancer, do you agree with those cuts?
No.
Thank you. Mr. Dickerson, leaked documents revealed that a VA hospital in rural Illinois was just forced to close its acute care unit to new patients due to the DOGE cuts. Can you tell me, is closing the doors of a VA acute care unit waste, or is it fraud, or is it abuse?
I don't know all the details about that particular instance, but I think that...
Would you say it's a big problem if DOGE cuts cause the closing of an acute care facility in a VA hospital?
Like I said, I think if funding that facility is a priority, we're running a $2 trillion annual
I think
deficit,
it is.
so
I think it is a priority.
So we can repurpose funds to something if it's a priority.
So you think that if it's not a priority, that it's waste?
I think that's for Congress and the administration to work together to determine.
Exactly. It's for Congress to work on, and the administration should not be calling our acute care veterans facilities waste and closing the doors of an acute care facility without Congress. And frankly, it is a priority, I believe, of the American people to care for our veterans. Mr. Burton, Trump recently eliminated the VA Services Purchasing Program, which just last year helped more than 33,000 veterans make sure that they don't get behind on their mortgage and they don't get thrown out of their home. Can you tell me, is this program that DOGE cut, is it waste, is it fraud, or is it abuse?
That's highly fact-dependent, and I'm not that familiar with that program. I will tell you one thing.
And I'll tell you, Mr. Burton, I'm familiar with it. It helped 33,000 of our veterans not lose their homes, and in my view, our veterans are not waste, fraud, or abuse, nor are they a piggy bank for billionaires' tax cuts like Elon Musk.
I doubt anyone.
This is my
that.
time, Mr. Burton.
Yep. Fine.
I am deeply concerned that President Trump will take reckless action to risk sending more American troops into endless wars in the Middle East. But back at home, he's breaking the sacred promise to our veterans to care for them when and if they come back. Donald Trump has already tried to fire thousands of people at the VA, and recent reporting shows that there are plans to try to fire 80,000 people at the VA. These reckless DOGE cuts have thrown VA hospitals into chaos, and in my own district, I've gotten reports of veterans waiting months for basic services like a wheelchair. I represent San Antonio, Texas, Military City, USA, where we honor the service of our men and women in uniform. And if we want to honor our veterans, we honor it with more than just words. We take actions to care for them when they come home. We don't needlessly send people into harm's way, and we don't cut their services for when they come home. This hearing should not be holding hearings. The committee should not be holding hearings on locking in DOGE cuts. We should be holding hearings about restoring services for our veterans. And while DOGE is screwing over our veterans, the administration is also stealing from seniors. We just learned about a huge new scandal that every senior in America needs to hear about. After Trump and Musk made massive cuts to the staff at the Social Security Administration, they've scrubbed government websites of information about how long it takes to get your phone call answered. They have erased from the websites the delays that it takes to process benefit claims. They have wiped away what used to be publicly available about how long it takes to respond to a 1-800 call at the Social Security Administration. This is a cover-up. And why are they covering it up? Because wait times have exploded. A brave whistleblower just estimated that Trump's changes and Elon Musk's cuts have doubled the amount of time it takes to process a Social Security claim. Everybody needs to hear about it. Social Security is not Elon Musk's piggy bank. I yield back.
The gentleman